I want to talk about misallocated capital and what happens to this misallocated capital in an afterlife. Like, some bank or hedge fund comes around and they're on a buying binge. They go and buy all the one family houses in the entire city of like Hawthorne or Palmsdale, and they are the only guy that if you are a family of a guy and a girl or a husband and wife, and you want to buy a single story family home, then you'll be dealing with this hedge fund. Then what happens is that, say, for example, in Palmdale or wherever, Escondido, or the the demographics changes over a certain amount of time. That this hedge fund bought this property and they held on to it for several years. Uh, but usually, the way things have evolved, the companies that they buy property, they end up holding on to it longer time because they are greedy. They want to make the most money, and they pumping up the real estate market with all kinds of artificial money and money printing and loans. And but the uh, well, the concept of a single family, like a home, a small home, it doesn't exist in reality as an entity unto itself. For example, like horses, they are a product of evolution. Nature made horses, and they exist. There is a not only a concept of a horse, but also that the horse is in relationship to nature, to humans, to other animals. It has a very long history. It doesn't exist as an entity unto itself. There isn't, like, in the universe, in the middle of the universe, in the middle of a space, you suddenly come and find the fully functioning horse. Horses usually are on the surface of the habitable planet, and they evolved out of other animals. And in similar fashion, uh, like a single family home, it it evolved because in the 50s and before, a guy, some GI, would be coming back from the war, and they would go and get a loan, and then he probably had a sweetheart, and they wanted to make babies. They wanted to make family, and they had needs for space. The space had to be private. Uh, so this concept, this model of a single family home, usually in many small towns, they're like built a little bit apart from each other. In other countries, they have just a wall separating city houses, but you know it 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 evolved from needs of the family, needs of the society, and also it had something to do with the demographics of that society, that there were all these people, all these GIs. They were coming back from war, and the girl had been waiting several years and did want to get married. They did want to have kids, so the houses had to have like a playground for the kids. It had to have a backyard. The backyard must be enclosed, and because we might get a dog, or we have two dogs, and the route that I'm taking is very similar to what a mathematician does when they study, say for example, number theory. Most mathematicians will start from extremely simple models, like they they start from 0 and 1 and 2, and whatever property these elementary numbers might have, then they extend it to larger numbers, and then they come up with a general formula that um, they use at any number. And then when they have come up with this general number, then this formula, even though it was developed from very simple considerations, it it will work in very extreme conditions. For example, uh, say you have a very large prime number, and you want to uh, discover its properties, then you could use this formula. It will take you some computer time to crack the properties of a very large number, very large prime, stuff like that. So, but many investors, many sociologists, many people in society, they forget that. They just a mistake that I I told you about the horses, like the horse. They don't look at the horse as a component of nature, that it does something with the nature, and the nature does something with it, and then they just consider this thing on its own, as if like it exists in a hypothetical space all by itself. Actually, many nuclear scientists or physicists that they were studying nature, they also make the same mistake. Initially, they were studying very simple atoms, and they started studying hydrogen, because a lot of the universe is really hydrogen. And I don't know, I think 23% is helium, and the rest, a very small fraction, is other elements, and the rest is hydrogen. So they started doing the same thing as the investors do, like take hydrogen as an entity unto itself, like a horse that exists in deep space all by itself. Or this idealization is very useful for people who are reductionists. They follow this philosophy that everything can be broken down it's into its component parts. Like for example, a proton can be broken down. If we use a cyclotron, we smash them together. Oh, hey, we have three quarks, and then we study the relationship between quarks, and then that's where we go. We get a picture of this atom. But this picture, which we have used, this method of reductionism that has seeped into all aspects of our modern science, including Wall Street and the way hedge funds approach things and invest. is very flawed, very bogus, and we get very strange results too. One of the consequences of investing in thousands of single family homes, somebody, the GI and his gal that has now is deceased. This GI, uh, he's now in his 70s or 80s. The property has appreciated from what he bought it for. He probably bought it for like $10,000, and he lived there. He invested there. He repaired the place, modified it in many ways so his children can use the property, the inside of it. It was probably remodeled many, many times over a course of, say, 20, 30 years, and is now is a nice single family home. But really the demographics, they have all changed. He's now wants to cash out. He's sold the property at a considerable appreciation to this hedge fund, and then he moved into either like a single family, not a single family, but like a small apartment studio, or moved to a smaller town, or in a mobile home, something very manageable, or worse, he moved into like old folks, what they call those things. Anyhow, uh, then the property is now a misallocated capital. It exists in the portfolio of many hedge funds that have thousands of these properties, and the property is waiting to appreciate some more, waiting for the next buyers, next people. And while all this was happening, many functioning companies, uh, they have really died. They are zombie companies. They don't really hire too many people. They don't, and the kinds of people, say for example, well, McDonnell Douglas doesn't exist anymore. Say Boeing, they hire all these financial fraudsters like themselves, or they outsource engineering. This is where most of the GIs and important people used to work. So the jobs have died. Uh, Everybody is older and have moved away. And so what happens after a while? This single family home, it was very good home, gradually sits there, gradually acquires problems. It gets sold initially to several other investors. The price goes higher and higher, but there is nobody living there. There is nobody using this property. There is nobody upgrading it. There is um, in a house, there's all these systems, the air conditioning, the plumbing, the whatever that's there, it decays, and actually the house is depreciates below its intrinsic value, because now it has all this depth that's attached to it, and there really isn't an owner, there isn't somebody, the handyman, upgrading it. But so this is a misallocated capital, but there is also a little hope that it will be sold to another family that would use it or upgrade it, or so. what but this doesn't end with a single family home. Single family home or a single apartment are something that very initially many kinds of buyers are into this, and it's like hotcakes that will sell first. But that's not the problem. Many other hedge funds or investors have. They have invested in all these large apartment, not apartment, office buildings, industrial properties, huge square feet areas that is not used anymore for different reasons. For example, uh, before 70s or 80s, uh, many things in a company were done or accomplished by uh, by the old world way of uh, there was a guy in the accounting department, and he had file cabinets with all the receivables or payables. There was another guy in next room. Actually was the bursar. This was the actual person that would write the checks to employees. And then there was the human resource. There was actually a person there, and that person would do the hiring, and you would have to actually physically walk into the office or into that building. And then what happened? The computer revolution happened, and everything became computerized. Initially, it made the productivity of these same employees better. Or if there was a machine shop, well, the machine shop would use the new machineries, the computers, to make more parts or stuff. But then it didn't end there. Also, a software revolution came afterwards, and many functions that were done by an employee, an existing employee, actually a human being, would enter data entry into of all the wages into this very simple software, that then they will do something else to figure out how much this employee has to get paid, how much are the taxes. There was a human element that did most of the work. But then the next leg of the revolution was that many of these systems were augmented by expert systems. Like you can now go, or even back then you could go buy. Well, I actually have seen text-based accounting software, which is mostly text. You enter the command, and you figure out each command meant something. Figure out the taxes of this guy, and then the next command you tell us, hey, I'm done with this employee. Print me a check for him, and then you would have to physically get the check and give the check to the operations manager to sign, and then there will be yet another person that distribute the check to the employee. I get the picture. But then these augmented software, which were initially very simple, they evolved too, and they became expert systems. Now you can buy accounting package um, that does all that stuff. The only thing you have to do is automate data entry. Well, this happened too. For example, I go to work and I'm a security guard. All the functions that I had to use different gimmicks, called the office, had them record my entry into the work site, There was a little device that I used to make an impression on a roll of paper that was later on read, that showed that I was actually on the side. All this stuff is now done by Android or a smart computer, and the smart computer is so smart, it knows that first of all, the smart computer is dedicated to the site, from the GPS and from the time and from my picture and from my voice and from what I said and did. It knows exactly that I was there in that location. And then when I take my patrol, it knows that I was on the side. I was going through different GPS locations. Uh, and then I don't even have to go into the office to pick up the check, because the check goes automatically um, into a pay card. All of the processing, all the stuff that the employees or people were used, and they had to go into this office building to do it. It's all automated. It's all handled by expert systems, and this was the last two legs, the last two steps of a process, and now we are entering, or we have entered, AI, robotics. Who knows where we go? We're gonna enter technological singularity. Or who the hell needs all these office buildings? Who needs? In fact, many of these office buildings, they they have been they're empty, or uh, they're being used in different for different reasons. So this is the result of idealization and misallocation of capital and money based on this idealism. But what's even worse is that many of these properties, they have a lot of problem because they have depreciated. There are many systems in, say, in an office building. There is air conditioning system that's the industrial strength uh, system. It's a large system, is sophisticated and very expensive. Then there is all kinds of other things that it needs. For example, it has to have uh, an outside trash collector with machinery come in and collect the trash bin that belongs to the entire building. And you cannot stop that. You have to keep paying for that. There is debt. There is interest on the debt. There is all the services that are allocated or related to this building. There is also and the customers, they aren't there. The reason this building was made for, it doesn't exist anymore. So but it exists in somebody's portfolio, that they have to maintain it. Well, I was walking down the street. Uh, I think this was by the courthouse in Orange. I don't know. They had machinery construction, and they were actually tearing down uh, apartment, not apartment, office building. They had that kind of broken down, and the office building, it looked very nice. It looked like it had a facade that was made all out of brick, but it wasn't. But well, you know, the cost to dismantle or destroy an existing office building is not that far per square feet from the cost of actually building this building. But because of all the financial wiseacre and stupidity they have done, the real estate property in, say, the city of Orange by Cora is astronomical prices. So the land has astronomical prices uh, compared to the even the building or the cost of tearing it down. I've seen other forms of fraud. Well, I think when a building or a structure is left unused or partially used, or then all kinds of other occupants come in, and the owners, if they are not like zillionaire hedge funds, the owners, they'll be really squeezed to continue, even in a partial way, to maintain the building or pay for existing loan or interest or services that the building must have. So they're very squeezed, and they're desperate to find anybody, or anybody finds his way into this building, and then that brings in. Uh, I've seen many office buildings. They're actually what they were being used for is to store narcotics. You know, because it doesn't have a lot of traffic, and then well, in our building we have two, possibly three brothel houses, and then other parts of the building, I don't know what they're being used for. uh, all kinds of other things spring up. A building is never really left alone, but then other stuff. Well, I watch a lot of uh, videos on archaeology, and many older buildings, very old buildings that are prehistoric. They're very much damaged in many ways. Parts of the building uh, have been, for example, the Giza pyramids. You can see the casting, outside casting or white stones that covered this building, that had been all removed because it was expensive stone. And the later generations that of people that come in, they are very irresponsible, very much poorer nation, very much impoverished in every sense of the word, morally or technologically. And they just have the attitude of many Americans have these days. This is the zero generation. They just want to use everything, whatever equity is in there. I just want to take all the money out of it, and I'll just buy cocaine for the rest of my life. I'll be happy, and then maybe I live by the 7-Eleven. Is this really fantasy in Hassan's mind? But is it really true? Uh, uh, yeah, but then there is all these other costs of getting these people off the building, and try to keep the building in a way that would be suitable for a good client to move in. Uh, you know, well, actually, there was a change of ownership because the old owner in our building, he died, and there were many places in the building, like the urinal, everything was kind of broken. And the toilet was broken. One of them was completely broke. It needed snaked. The railings were bad. The steps were bad. It still needs resurfaced on the on the parking around the building. Uh, Many other problems. Many tenants were very crazy. People had moved in. Like I told you, they had brothel houses there, and we don't know what else is going on in the building. Well, I know. But then well, my friend, his attorney that owned the building before, he had brought in his brother. I know his brother, and his brother actually inherited the building on a trust for like, I think the trust runs out when his wife and children become adults. Well, his wife is an adult, but his two children becomes adult. The trust runs out. So actually, his brother came in, and his brother had been a repairman or a mechanic in Iranian military. After he moved in, he kind of settled in, or he has control of the part. We saw how much this property got repaired. There's all these repairs he had done. Uh, Actually, we have a handyman. He's a gang, Mexican gang member. He had done no repairs anywhere in the building. So the building looks completely different or feels completely different because somebody from older generations from they came in and took responsibility for the building, and the building kind of uh, feels right, feels normal. A lot of stuff has been repaired, but can you say the same thing with all these investments that the all these stupid investors, many of these investors are not even in the United States. They're in far away places like China or the the places that they have here. A lot of them they're really wreck, and I don't know. Well, thank you for putting up with my rant, and please subscribe, leave comments, and I do like to hear from you. I have a lot of friends, girlfriends on Instagram, but after I discovered that many of them were really fronts for this Nigerian gang, I'm gonna be more cautious. But I do I do like women, and but I'm not gonna be doing texting. I'm going to like try to make a video chat with you, like call you on the video line. If you don't pick up, then nothing else will happen. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.